Hello YouTube. Bane666 here. Welcome to Propaganda of Toxic Feminism, the series in which I expose and debunk falsehoods, misconceptions, and outright lies spread about the men's rights movement. So let's get stuck into it. So I just came across a video from the Young Turks titled, "Men's Rights Activist Says Iowa Shooter Can't Be Blamed for Killing." Let me guess, this isn't going to be about actual men's rights activists, is it?
Last Friday, a former security guard at a mall in Iowa shot and killed a 20-year-old woman who was working at a kiosk. The woman's name is Andrea Farrington, and unfortunately she did not survive the gun wounds. Now, Alex Kozak has been taken into custody, and he is facing murder charges for the shooting. To give you some more context into the story, he was alleged to sexually harass the 20-year-old woman, and as a result, he was facing termination from his job. And apparently, he thought it would be a great idea to retaliate by shooting this woman in the back several times until she died. Now, that story was devastating in and of itself, but the response to that story, I would argue, is just as devastating because it shows you the lack of humanity we have in this country. Now, there are a number of men's rights activists that are sharing their opinion on this story, and a number of them actually think that, hey, you know what? You can't blame this guy for shooting and killing this 20-year-old woman.
Personally, I think it's a tragic story. But before going on, we should check the Young Turks links, because maybe they have found some actual MRAs who would disagree with me. The show notes state, David Futrell reported that commenters at a Red Pillars forum expressed sympathy for open carry advocate Alex Kozak, who they believe was unfairly treated by a system that takes sexual harassment complaints too seriously. The so-called Red Pillars believe that society favors women over men, disenfranchising them and leaving them subject to laws and societal rules they feel are unjust to their gender. Notice no mention of men's rights, just Red Pillars forum. There is also a link to the raw story, so let's look at that. The raw story title is, Men's Rights Fanatics Defend Iowa Mall Shooter Fired for Sexual Harassment, It's Hard to Blame Him. Oh, so it's men's rights fanatics now. Let's read on. Several members of the men's rights movement have offered qualified support for a former Iowa mall security guard, who shot and killed a 20-year-old woman Friday night after he was reportedly fired because the woman complained that he was sexually harassing her. David Futrell reported that commenters at a Red Pillars forum expressed sympathy for open carry advocate Alex Kozak, who they believe was unfairly treated by a system that takes sexual harassment complaints too seriously. Okay, so I checked the rest of the article and there is no other mentions of men's rights or MRAs. Just a couple of mentions of Elliot Rodger, the Red Pill, and even one mention of pickup artist, in a quote. So let's follow the source material back to its origins, which is Dave Futrell's site, We Hunted the Mammoth. The article is titled, Man Kills Woman Said to Have Reported Him for Sexual Harassment. Red Pillars Find It Hard to Blame Him. The first thing you should note is that nowhere in the title, unlike with the raw story, does it say men's rights. In fact, nowhere in the entire Man Boobs article does the terms MRA, or men's rights appear, not once. Nowhere. It does however state that, over on the Roosh V forum, an online hangout for Red Pillars and fans of the repugnant pickup artist and rape legalization proponent, some of the regulars are finding it hard to blame Kozak for the murder. So the men's rights activists that the Young Turks and the raw story are talking about are actually pickup artists associated with Roosh V. Now let me stress, Futrell cannot be blamed for this one. It was the raw story that once again dishonestly turned pickup artists into MRAs. I cannot say if they did it out of sheer ignorance, or despicable dishonesty. I'd guess despicable dishonesty. Then the Young Turks came along, and took the raw story article as fact, without fact-checking, or understanding the groups involved. I suspect in the Young Turks case, it was just sheer laziness and stupidity. Oh, and by the way, this only took me 5 minutes to research. All I had to do was click on the links, which they supplied, and read the articles. That's all. It would seem that the Young Turks didn't even do that. Next.
She had it coming. Let me give you some examples. Now, this is from an MRA forum, and here's what...
You mean a pickup artist forum?
A few of the people on the forum said. One person says, like rape, does the term sexual harassment pretty much no longer have any real meaning? I.e., it's safe to assume there's no chance this guy actually touched her or said anything lewd.
Can you see down in the corner? You can see the name Rush V. Next.
Overtly lewd.
Oh, overtly lewd.
Okay, so some caveats here. First of all, these guys don't represent all people in the men's rights movement.
That would be because they are not MRAs.
Obviously.
Right.
Okay. But there were enough of them here that you begin to get concerned.
Yeah.
Right? And we're concerned about the specific things that they said.
So they're so-called red pillars. They're on a forum for red pillars. And one journalist kind of compiled a number of comments that people were sharing on there. And I'm glad that you pointed out that they're not representative of all MRAs.
That would be because they are not MRAs.
However, they're the ones who get the most attention because they're batshit crazy.
No, it's because it's an easy way for dishonest journalists to discredit the men's rights movement. Next.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah, and so... And ironically, they would turn around and say similar things about women who accuse people of rape when it didn't happen. So the famous Rolling Stone story in the University of Virginia, et cetera. And then they become terrible examples for people who are concerned about women's rights and rape. Well, then your red pillars and the guys who are specifically saying this stuff are terrible examples of the MRA movement.
Even though they are not MRAs. Next.
And, and so this is what draws people's attention, and this is what people think represent you. If that's not the case, you got to figure out how to get your message.
Well, it requires journalists to be accountable. But more on that in a minute. Next.
Out in a better way, because this is horrible.
No, this is beyond horrible, okay? This goes beyond gender wars. This goes beyond this woman was a person. Right? But these assholes don't see that. And it's really hard for me to stay calm and reasonable when it comes to stories like this because at the end of the day, a 20-year-old girl was shot in the back 3 times and killed. Okay? They're claiming, oh, maybe she made up the sexual harassment charges. First of all, let's say worst case scenario, she did make them up, right? You still think that it's justified for someone to shoot and kill someone because of false accusations? That's the country we're living in right now? And by the way, you assholes are just making fucking assumptions because you're pieces of shit.
Which is ironic considering the assumptions made here by the Young Turks. Next.
Okay, you don't know what happened. You're speculating. And regardless of what actually occurred, someone died and they didn't deserve to die. It's that simple.
The irony here is they call themselves red pillars, like, oh, they're the ones who took the red pill. They're the ones who are telling the real truth. But no, wait a minute. You don't know the truth at all. You're totally speculating. You said, I doubt that he made any overtly lewd comments. I read the stories. There's no references one way or another to the specifics of what he said to her.
Exactly.
So you don't know that at all. You're just assuming that he must have been a swell guy. Why are you assuming that it's someone who shot a girl in the back 3 times, murdered him in cold blood, and in the most cowardly way imaginable? Okay.
Let me give you more.
Wait.
And for the record, I agree with Cenk 100% here. Next.
Why do you assume he's right? Why do you assume he never did anything wrong to her? And by the way, he was married. So you're assuming that this swell guy who was married to someone else, while he was talking to the other girl, never said anything bad, but because the world is so unjust towards men and loves women so much and has given them so much power, that he must have been the victim. How could you think this guy was the victim?
Let me give you
What's wrong with you?
There's so much more, Jake. That was like half of one quote. He continues to say, as somebody who's been job hunting for some time, now picturing being fired in this job market over some twit. She fucking died, you asshole. Over some twit finding you creepy. Sad to say, I'm finding it hard to blame him. There's no article that references her referring to him as creepy.
Can you see down in the corner? You can see the name Rush V. Next. Okay,
again, there's no specifics, no details on what occurred with that whole sexual harassment accusation. But again, you're calling her, she's dead. You're calling her a twit, she's dead.
And by the way, the employer thought that his actions were clearly over the line, and that's why they fired him. So those are the only people who actually know what happened. We know that she was worried. She told her friends and relatives that she was worried about the guy. Okay, so obviously there are several people concerned about the guy. Okay, and this is a guy, by the way, who would love to carry around guns. He carried them at Costco. His wife, who apparently had no idea, I don't know, I assume had no idea that in fact he was all over some other girl, whether it's verbally or otherwise, right? And it was put up Facebook pictures of him carrying guns around in public places. No, but this is the guy you want to defend, okay? Because he needed his gun to defend himself, except for when he shot someone else in the back 3 times who was unarmed.
Another person writes, as far as I'm concerned, his being guilty of not giving these bitches the tingles is what caused him to get fired and in turn murder this chick. It's her fault for getting murdered, right?
Can you see down in the corner? You can see the name Roosh V. Next.
Because she didn't get wet at his every advance. Here's the reality of some, not all, some MRA guys, right?
And this is where Anna starts to sex shame us, based on the actions of the pickup artists.
Right? They're sexually frustrated, unemployed losers who are looking for a scapegoat. You are a loser because you're just simply a loser. It's not a woman's fault. It's not feminists' fault. It's because you're fucking awkward and you can't figure out what's wrong with you, and so you're looking for poor people who have been killed to blame for these kinds of things.
So from here on, Anna and Jenk, mainly Anna, go on a sex-shaming tirade. But before subjecting ourselves to that, let's look at the comments section. I left a comment about 12 hours ago, which read, "So here's the facts, which took me 5 minutes to figure out." Dave Futrell from We Hunted the Mammoth wrote an article. He mentions Roosh V's forum, an online hangout for red pillars. Roosh V is a pickup artist, not an MRA. Futrell's article only mentions pickup artists and Roosh V, nowhere does it mention MRAs, and trust me, he would if he had dirt. Next, the Raw story picks it up and transforms pickup artists into MRAs, even though they are two very different groups with different goals and methods, and dislike one another. The title of the Raw story piece mentions MRAs, and the first paragraph mentions MRAs, despite Futrell's article not mentioning us once. It mentions pickup artists later. Then the Young Turks, without checking facts, repeat the lie, only this time leaving out the pickup artists completely. And this is why everyone hates MRAs, because of dishonest journalistic hacks, who are either too lazy to spend 5 minutes checking facts before ranting like lunatics, or are dishonest and are purposely mischaracterizing one group with another. Welcome to modern-day journalism, doesn't it stink? And I got some interesting responses. I should point out that there were many positive, well-thought-out replies. Thank you to everyone who did so. Unfortunately, they cannot all be classed that way. So let's have a look at some. So you choose to believe one article over another? How are you any different than TYT? Oh boy, someone doesn't do logic very well. Once again, I'm referring to the original article, which the second one exclusively references. Next. Blocked you MRA troll. Remember folks, feminism is love and happiness, and all things nice. And are not only open-minded to other views, but also play well with others. Next. You've got to be kidding? You haven't seen the videos by the likes of Jack Elam, espousing the creed that all women are innately dishonest and inferior to men and that they are all to be considered the enemy? MRAs demonize all women, not just feminists, at least, some if their loudest spokespeople do. They simply pick on feminists as their target rather than honestly come out with it, often as not. Jack Elam? Who the fuck is Jack Elam? Is that Paul's brother or something? Second cousin maybe? Now I remember who Jack Elam is. He's the guy who runs AVFFC. You know, a voice for fictional characters, because he doesn't exist. Now I can understand someone getting a name wrong in the comments section. I'm sure I've done it myself. But I have to think that if you cannot get Paul Elam's name right, considering how high profile he is, then you should probably not be commenting on men's rights like you are a fucking expert. You know, it's kind of like, for example, if a Gamergator left a comment somewhere saying, Betty Sarkeesian is full of shit and doesn't know what she is talking about. I wouldn't blame anti-Gamergators for laughing at him, I mean, fuck, I'd laugh at him myself, and I'm a Gamergate supporter. But I am familiar with Hexam7, he's left what feels like 1,000 comments on my very first video, defending Shanty Binks and the other feminist protestors. So I'm not really surprised he's spreading bullshit about Paul Elam. We should all start calling Paul, Jack, as a joke. Next. Took me 10 seconds to find out that he's been an MRA. So I assume he is talking about Roosh here. And not surprisingly, 10 seconds of research is about as useful as a gender studies degree. I'm guessing he found one of about 100 or so feminist propaganda pieces claiming Roosh is an MRA, but never actually took the time, as he only gave it 10 seconds, to investigate the claims, to click on links, to check sources, and to fact-check. He took what he was told as true, without question. Which proves my case. But let's settle this once and for all. Is Roosh V an MRA? Well, let's check his website. From the article, men's rights has become a euphemism for sexual loser. Wow, Roosh is sounding just like Anna from the Young Turks. Hyperbole aside, all men can learn and improve, whether it's in business, women, sports, or Chinese checkers. To think that getting laid is genetically determined and that you can't improve, what a horrible way to live. If I had to accept my lot, I would probably be in some shitty job not getting laid and feeling miserable about how unlucky I am while complaining about how much women suck. I would be a men's rights follower. I would camp out on blogs and forums all day posting intellectual comments for other guys who are socially awkward because they are too scared to step away from the computer monitor for 1 minute and take some social risk by practicing conversation with attractive women. But if you tell them, bro, you need to approach a girl and get some action, they'll say, stop using shaming language on me. That's their comeback. It's like a little boy on the playground saying, don't make fun of me. I like eating my boogers. For guys who supposedly love using logic, they are completely unable to properly defend their lack of action, and have insulated themselves in a protective internet bubble where they gang up on the slightest bit of dissent by saying it makes them feel ashamed. They can't get laid, they supposedly don't like women, especially Western women, and don't want to work to bang them, yet they whine and bitch about women all day long. Wow, doesn't Roosh sound just like a feminist? For example, from James Fell. I like getting laid. It's fun. Back when I couldn't get laid, I wondered what I needed to do to get laid. And so, I worked on me. I worked on my education, my personality, my skill set, my career and my body. And guess what happened? Sex. And love and marriage and family and success and all that awesome stuff. An MRA is a loser who doesn't look inward on how to improve, but looks outward on whom to blame for sucking, because self-improvement is hard. Also, not having women praise their genitalia the way it happens in porn makes them angry. So one thing I've learned from feminists, while doing this series is, if one group has a slightly similar argument to another, then they must be exactly the same, right? So that would mean, using feminist logic, that Roosh is really a feminist, and James Fell is really a pickup artist. Hell, let's take the full ride on the feminist logic train, and just claim that all pickup artists, and all feminists, are exactly the same with no differences, because two individuals from each group argue the same way about a third. Of course, using this logic, all Americans must be communists, because the USA and Russia were allies against the Nazis, right? Can you see how this is bullshit? But let's look at another article from Roosh. The men's rights movement is dead. Wow, sounds exactly like something an MRA would say, as opposed to, you know, someone who's not an MRA and is competing in the same marketplace. 3 years ago I wrote a post titled, Men's Rights Has Become a Euphemism for Sexual Loser. I argued that the movement is made up of manginists who refuse to improve themselves. Afterwards, a part of me felt regret for blasting them. After all, we're all on the same team, in search of happiness in an increasingly male-hostile world. So I reached out to them. I commented on their blogs. I tweeted their posts. I endured their temper tantrums about how game, doesn't work, or is, only for sluts. I held out hope that they would self-organize and smash feminism in the face. But nothing happened. There was no action, no movement, to speak of. In that time they only had one victory to boast about, the removal of a Huggies commercial that was deemed offensive to dads. The sad part is that the anti-diaper activism happened outside of the MRA sphere. They couldn't even claim it was their work. They were the reporters who arrived late to the crime scene trying to pretend they still had the exclusive scoop, but the viewers at home weren't fooled. Wow, this sounds very familiar. Where have I heard this? MRAs aren't real activists, MRAs do nothing, bullshit before. Let me think. Oh, that's right, from feminists. Once again, take it away, James. I have mentioned in the past that there are some real issues faced by men worthy of acting upon. But MRAs aren't doing shit about them. Wow, look at that, same argument, must be the exact same group, right? Let's have a look at another article. And from The Men's Rights Movement is No Place for Men, by Emmanuel Goldstein, on Roosh V's site, Return of Kings. As utopians, MRAs don't much care about any social institution for its own traditional role, but only insofar as it promotes gender equality. Its goal is to remake every institution in society until androgyny of the sexes is attained and expected, and the oppression of men has ceased. I've yet to meet any MRAs in person, so it's hard to understand exactly why they're so hostile to traditional sex roles. But they bear an uncanny resemblance to feminists because they resent the duties and limits that their sex imposes. They're like fat chicks trying to redefine beauty to mean vile obesity. They are pariahs. Which would be fine, if they would simply leave everyone else alone, and carry on amongst themselves. Men going their own way do exactly that, for which they have my respect. But like fat chicks and feminists, MRAs are too insecure for that. They desperately crave the wider society's approval. They can't bear to go off on their own while society writes them off. So they try to make pariahdom the new normal. The traditional forms of beauty and virtue become their sworn enemy. So can you kind of see now why I don't like PUAs? Well, hold on, I shouldn't judge all PUAs by the standards of Roosh and his like. After all, as Prof pointed out in the Young Turks comment section, you forgot the fact that the guy who said the hard to blame him quote was instantly called out on his bullshit by his peers on the same fucking page. Read for yourself. TYT has no dignity. Reporting on something someone said on a forum one time is absolutely hilarious. Stop pretending you guys are journalists. What's next? Are you going to start reporting on anonymous YouTube comments too? This is in fact correct. As we can see here, he was called out by others in the forum. Next. To suggest that there's no overlap between pickup artists and MRAs is naive. They're not entirely separate groups. It's true that we share a common enemy in gender feminism. Just like I said before, Communist Russia and capitalist United States shared the common enemy of the Nazis. But you would have to be a fucking moron to say that Communist Russia and capitalist United States were the same fucking group. Should the United States be responsible for the millions of dead Russians at the hands of Stalin? Should 1950s America be considered a communist country? Of course not. And don't forget there are similar overlaps between feminism and men's rights. I would say most, if not all MRAs respect Christina Hoff Sommers, and her brand of feminism. I know I do. I think it's safe to say that the vast majority of MRAs agree that traditional gender roles can be harmful to men, and that we shouldn't be seen as disposable drones sent off to war, or slave providers who only contribute with their wallets. Although it should be noted that what feminists and MRAs perceive as harmful male gender roles are very different. Many MRAs and feminists are against male genital mutilation. If you look hard enough, you will find overlaps in just about any group. Hey, both Buddhists and Muslims have spiritual beliefs, thus making them very different than atheists. But should we hold the Dalai Lama responsible for September 11th? Of course not, it's a stupid fucking argument. Next. Sorry, guy, I'm more than willing to let lying slide when it comes to MRAs, red pillars, pickup artists, or whatever else you want to call them or talk about. Every MRA out there is a deluded half-wit who can't stand the thought of not having complete control of everything and, for reasons on God can fathom, thinks rights are a zero-sum game. There is nothing noble about what you do, there is nothing meaningful behind anything you say. You're all the scum of the earth. I won't be as sympathetic as TYT and say that it's only some of you, you're all vile. Interesting that he said he or she is willing to let lying slide when it comes to the MRA. In other words, he or she is willing to swallow bullshit if it supports their existing bias. Next. No, the reason people don't like MRAs is because they give no less than two shits about men's issues. They don't actively try to help trans men, fight hypermasculinity or dismantle harmful male gender roles. They only want to harass and attack feminists. Next. Ruch's PUA, red pill and MRA. It's possible to carry more than one acronym after your name. Does he know that? Please go and tell him, then send me a copy of his response, it should be good for a laugh. Next. There are MRAs who would share the views of these commentators simply because they are focused so much on exposing women who lie about sexual harassment that they think it's the norm. You'll find them here on YouTube. Mind you, these MRAs mostly fit with the MGTOW community, which is almost the bridge between the very different PUA community and MRM. I have my problems with anti-feminists. I also believe anti-feminism is a common thread in all three of these and something that could motivate a justification for killing someone who makes a sexual harassment complaint. It said. Calling Ruch V an MRA community is very misguided and something I highly disapprove of. They don't even dedicate much time to discuss anti-feminism, so the direct link between the forum and the MRM is disingenuous. We can focus on the fact that too many MRAs, which is in no way the majority, would support these PUAs in their views, but we cannot use that forum to document it. Anti-feminism is too rampant a part of the MRA, but this story only proves it's a rampant part of the PUA community. I'm glad you called out TYT on this. Well, that's an interesting comment. A simple question though, don't you think the feminist demonization of men's rights by using pickup artists, or Elliot, Rodger, or whoever is a good enough reason to be anti-feminist? And by no means the only reason. Next. This fails even as an attack against PUAs. Quote mining, the comments in a forum to smear a whole group is shabby enough. Doing it to smear a different group is downright bizarre. Actually, it seems to be one of their main tactics, unfortunately. Anyway, back to Anna and her sex shaming.
Alright, like it's so hard for me to remain calm in these types of stories. And I would have the same anger if a group of feminists were justifying the murder of an innocent man.
You mean like on the Jodi Arias support page on Facebook? Or the Free Jodi Arias page? Or yet another Jodi Arias support page? Or why Jodi Arias is innocent? Okay, I hear what you are saying. How do I know those Facebook pages are feminist pages? The simple answer is I don't, but if modern journalism has taught me anything, it's that you don't actually need facts to make a case, you can just make shit up, like the Raw story or the Young Turks do. I mean, most people either don't notice, or don't care, right? So what does it matter as long as it gets people outraged and a bit of clickbait happening? But I do hold myself to a little bit of a higher standard than just making shit up, so why don't we find someone that actually sounds like a feminist? Oh look, here's one. She's on Blogger. That kind of sounds feminist. Let's read her profile. Supporter of women's rights but a devout Republican, 17 years old, junior in high school with a dream of having my own sports politics talk show and hopeful sports anchor. Bodybuilder, lover of Jesus, running, country music and America. Hopefully will also be a member of Congress one day and the first female president of the United States of America. Oh look, she's for women's rights, must be a typical feminist then, you know, because all feminists are Republican bodybuilding, Jesus lovers, right? Why are you looking at me funny? I'm being a modern reporter. So let's see what she has to say about Jodi Arias. So, is Jodi Arias guilty? Yes, of course she is. But is she really guilty? Is she really guilty for murder for no reason, or was she simply defending herself? Is she really this crazy woman that the plaintiffs are seemingly making her be? Is Jodi Arias innocent? I will tell you why she was simply defending herself, and I can take her side because when she was younger she was accused of being psychotic. I have been accused of the same by socialistic doctors, who are under socialistic programs funded by the government in this state of Pennsylvania. My parents are forcing me to stay on this medication these nurses and doctors are prescribing for me because I have anxiety and hallucinate. Okay, 2 quick things before going on. 1. Just a reminder that this young woman one day wants to be President of the United States. This hallucinating psychotic young woman. Just keep that in mind for the future. You might want to vote for either another Bush or Clinton on that election day. 2. Using the rules of modern-day journalism, we can now class all feminists as bodybuilding, Jesus-loving, hallucinating psychotic Republicans. Well, at least some of those things seem right. Next. But, forgetting about the sorrow of my problems, I am using them to defend Miss Arias. She was physically abused by her father as a child, and her mother insisted that she see therapists, which she was soon diagnosed with borderline multiple personality disorder. Her boyfriend, Travis Alexander, was a Mormon who basically used her as a sex slave. According to her, he also abused her physically. According to her, part of her baptism into the Mormon religion was Travis Alexander forcing her to have anal sex with him. Sounds absolutely credible. Using the rules of modern-day journalism, we can now class all Mormons as sodomites, based on nothing more than hearsay on an online blog. Sounds perfectly legit. Let's continue. One of the matters that is very important to keep in mind and that I can certainly back up is that it is very possible that the reason that it took Jodi Arias 3 times to admit that she killed Travis Alexander was because she was simply scared. I have faced this situation before where fear has prevented me of admitting something, and I have automatically been accused of having a disability. I'm obviously no psychologist, but many people are affected by traumatic events that have happened in their lives. I firmly believe that Jodi Arias was simply a victim of psychological trauma. Okay, clearly this young future president of the apocalypse isn't representative of all feminists everywhere. I'm more honest than that, and have a higher standard of evidence. Let's try to find an actual feminist supporting Jodi Arias. Like for example.
On the one side, we have demeaning multiple verbal slurs, a slap, a shove, a chokehold, and a lunge perpetrated on Jodi. On the other, we have a gunshot to the head, a 4-inch deep slit throat, and close to 30 stab wounds delivered by Jodi to Travis. Is not the perpetrator of the greatest domestic violence Jodi?
I think what happened to Mr. Alexander is horrific.
Objection. Relevance.
Sustained.
I think that self-defense.
Objection. Beyond the court's order, beyond the scope of the question.
There's no order of practice. I'm going to sustain the objection. The question is not the perpetrator of the greatest domestic violence Jodi?
No.
The woman accusing Jodi Arias, murdering Travis Alexander in such a brutal manner was Alyce Laviolette. She's a domestic violence expert and a feminist. Despite all the evidence, Alyce Laviolette portrayed Jodi Arias as the victim, and Travis Alexander as the victimizer. This is because she belongs to a school of thought where males belong to the victimizer class, and females belong to the victim class, as opposed to either gender being capable of being victim or victimizer. But Alyce Laviolette isn't alone. Take University of Ottawa law professor Elizabeth Sheehy, for example, who promotes the idea that wives should be able to preemptively kill their husbands in their sleep, as a means of self-defense. Of course this only applies to women who have been abused. not to abused husbands. But I have to wonder if it ever crossed her mind that some women may abuse this. May kill their innocent husband, in his sleep, and then claim abuse, with no supporting evidence. But it's only a man's life, right, Professor Sheehy? I can understand someone killing someone else in self-defense, and I have no doubt that there have been many cases where women have done exactly that. But that doesn't mean we should assume guilt or innocence based on gender, or should I say feminist gender stereotypes. I'm not going to support the handful of dickheads making insensitive and moronic comments on Rush V's forum, but let's get some perspective here. They are just a handful of dickheads on a pickup artist forum. However, with feminism, it's institutionalized. But back to Anna.
It's not okay. What kind of country are you living in where we think that this kind of behavior is okay?
And so what makes you a quote-unquote loser is not because you can't get laid. Hey, I've been there, okay? And for a long, way too long a time, okay? What makes you a questionable dude is when you try to blame everybody else for it. Right?
Exactly.
And so, oh no, it's not that, hey, you know what, I didn't use the right tactic, or look, I tried to figure out what I was doing wrong, right? Because obviously I was doing something wrong. My drought was legendary, okay? And so, hey, am I approaching this in the wrong way, etc.? These guys look at it and go, no, it's his fault, her fault, the beta male's fault, that girl's fault. If the girl was good, she would realize that she needs to sleep with me. It's, look, man, look inside. Instead, you're lashing out in the most horrific way.
Yeah.
What men's rights activist has ever said that shit? This is just a false stereotype created by a false association with Elliot, Rodger, and the pickup artists. It's a feminist derailing tactic, designed to dismiss real issues, and replace them with sex shaming and straw men. Next.
And here's just a pro tip for all you extreme MRA guys out there who are frustrated not getting laid. A surefire way to not get laid is whining and complaining about how women don't want to fuck you.
Why is it that whenever we try to talk about serious male issues, the conversation always seems to get derailed to women and their vaginas? Seriously, do you think maybe we can stop talking about your somewhat disturbing preoccupation with your vag for 5 minutes? I find it amazing that feminists are constantly telling us that they don't want to be seen as sex objects. Fair enough, but why then must they portray us as sex-starved objects? I hate to inform any feminists who may be watching this, but my world does not revolve around your vagina.
Okay? Guarantee you that's the #1 woman repellent. So don't blame women for it. Figure out what your issue is. And don't lash out by blaming people who have just been murdered for the fact that they've been murdered.
You mean, like in the Jodi Arias trial?
Actually, Anna could not have helped you more with that tip. If you don't want to take the tip because you're angry, that's your problem. But trust me, as a guy who tried 1,000 different wrong ways of dating women, getting with women, etc., right? Going up to a woman saying, it's your fault you don't want to date me. Oh, there's no way she's going to date you. There's no way. How could you not see that? Right? And then, so let me read you the last quote.
There are a lot of men's issues to be angry about. Male genital mutilation makes me angry. The gender sentencing gap makes me angry. The family court and fathers not getting custody makes me angry. Male suicide makes me angry. Male homelessness makes me angry. What does not make me angry is my sex life. Stop fucking derailing the real issues.
From this guy that calls himself Samso, I guess. He says he wasn't being rude to anyone on his job. Again, total assumptions, not remotely true as far as the facts are concerned from what we know. He wasn't trying to be a pickup artist on the job. Again, don't know that. And shitting where he eats, don't know that. In fact, the facts are counter to that. His prior complaints leading up to his firing are almost certainly trumped-up charges. Total assumption. Made it up. His crime? Being a beta male raised without a father and a domineering mother. Again, I don't know if he has any idea how this...
Can you see down in the corner? You can see the name Rush V. Next.
This guy was raised at all,
well,
right?
He's probably projecting.
Right. But how could he be a beta male? I'm so confused by what you call beta males. If you're the one not getting laid, aren't you the beta male? No, okay, somehow you're the alpha male. But this guy shot and killed someone. and he's still a beta male? I don't know. It's not. I don't know what you like. It makes no sense.
Well, to be fair, it makes about as much sense as this episode of The Young Turks.
There's no, like, in your imaginary world, as you sit there wherever you are, right? You think that you're on the throne and you're the alpha male of alpha males, and yet somehow you're so bitter at women who are not with you. If you're an alpha male, shouldn't you be surrounded by women? Right?
Seriously, what the fuck does any of this bullshit have to do with actual men's rights issues?
Right?
Yeah.
But it's their fault that they haven't been attracted to this alpha male, which by definition they're supposed to be attracted to, right? And yet everybody else in the world, the guys who are getting laid are beta males, the guy who does the shooting is a beta male. So maybe I'm missing it as to what makes an alpha male and a beta male, right? But look, if you believe in the men's rights movement, these guys are cancer. This looks horrible.
I agree that it looks horrible. But not due to anything actually done by men's rights activists. It looks horrible because of the false association put forward by dishonest feminist propagandists, as well as ignorant journalistic hacks, who spread the lies without so much as the simplest of fact-checking. Modern-day journalism is a disgrace.
Horrible. Okay, so, look, I don't hold everybody responsible. I'm not a knuckleheaded conservative who says, okay, one Muslim did a bombing, so all Muslims are at fault, right?
No, what you are saying is the equivalent of, one Muslim did a bombing, so we should hold all Buddhists accountable, because both groups are religious. Which is actually far worse than your example, Jenk.
But these guys, whoever they are really bad apples. And if it's not the whole orchard, you got to show. I don't know how. I don't know that it's anybody's particular responsibility or anything.
Yeah.
Jenk's comparing apples and oranges here. Sorry, I couldn't resist that one.
But you got to show that this isn't the orchard, because if this is the orchard, it's a horrible orchard.
Yeah, and look, to give some credit to the MRA movement, there are some issues where they're right, whether it's alimony or child support,
Or a long list of other issues, which the Young Turks will never seriously cover on this show.
Prosecution for men versus women. Those are things that I think they have legitimate points on. But unfortunately, the people who are getting all the attention are distracting from legitimate messages that you're trying to send out there.
Which is the fault of hack journalists like yourself, Anna. One more point before moving on to the next segment. Someone is bound to say, but didn't Rushvi do a 2-part interview with AVFM earlier this year? Doesn't that mean he's connected to the men's rights movement? First of all, I found it a bit strange that AVFM would interview Rush after some of the things he's said in the past, but then again, they did also interview radical feminist Nocturnus Libertus.
So you still consider yourself a rad femme, right?
Yes.
Okay. But you're a strong proponent of free speech.
Yes.
Is that because ultimately you are an anarchist?
Yes.
Explain what anarchy means to you.
Does this mean that AVFM is a radical feminist organization? I've had my suspicions, ever since I heard Dina's maid doesn't shave his armpits. But seriously, just because you interview someone, doesn't mean you share their ideology. The Young Turks have even interviewed Karen, that doesn't make them MRAs. Next.
So what is a pussybeggar? You see, the thing that makes a pussybeggar is the fact that the pussybeggar truly believes that women choose the wrong men. The pussybeggar believes that there are good men, and then there are bad men. But rather than to accept the choices that women make and deal with their own rejection, they convince themselves that the world is unfair to them. They actually think that they have a better idea of what types of men women should choose than women themselves do. And it should come as no surprise to anyone that a pussybeggar would never consider himself to be the wrong choice for a woman. Hell no. The bad man is always the other man. The pussybeggar is always the good man. The pussybeggar has a very important message to send to women. And his message is that he is a better choice than his competitors. The pussybeggar really believes that he's the nice guy, and that he would never mistreat a woman. It's only those other guys who mistreat women. And of course, the pussybeggar believes that if women were smarter, they would always choose the pussybeggar, and the pussybeggar would get laid, and the other inferior men wouldn't. anytime that a male comes up with a theory about who women should choose, you have to take it with a grain of salt. If only women would sleep with nice guys like me, all of the world's problems would go away. Yeah, okay. So rather than to take an interest in any real gender issues, the Pussybeggar just wants to vent and complain about the terrible choices that women make, all the while presenting themselves as the best possible option for women. It's absurd. And what ultimately motivates the Pussybeggar and the whole Pussybeggar mentality is their own personal belief that they, the Pussybeggar, are a superior choice over other men. The Pussybeggar believes that women are choosing inferior men, men who don't really deserve the love that women give them. And they feel like this is unfair to them. It's all about them. Me, me, me. My pain, my suffering. I deserve better. Women should choose me. You get the picture. Their jealousy towards other men and their hatred towards men who get laid makes them totally incompatible with the men's rights movement. Can you imagine a movement of people who all think that the world should revolve around them? That the world should be their own private pity party? Can you imagine a movement of men who hold other men in contempt for the crime of being loved and adored by women? Can you imagine a movement of men who have no trouble with ignoring the blatant hypocrisy, allowing themselves to hate other men just for having something that they want for themselves? Can you imagine a movement of men who are consumed by both real misandry and real misogyny in a way that's mutually reinforcing? I sure can't. Honestly, I've never come across anyone who embodies the Pussybeggar stereotype, more so than Elliot Rodger. That murderer was pure, distilled Pussybeggar, in my humble opinion. And I'm sure that by now you are all very familiar with Elliot Rodger's views, so I don't think that I really need to bother with repeating or citing any specific statements that Elliot Rodger has made in order to make my case that he was, in fact, a Pussybeggar. But I do recommend that you take a look at Thugtician's excellent analysis and description of the Pussybeggar, in case you haven't come across it yet. There's a link in the lower bar. To me, it really almost sounds like he was describing Elliot Rodger, and that's 5 years before he made the news for his murder of 6 innocent people. I'm not saying that Pussybeggars are all potential murderers or anything like that. I'm just pointing out that we in the men's movement have already identified these Pussybeggars as opponents of our common cause, long before our feminist opponents started to associate MRAs with Pussybeggars as a deliberate attempt to slander us.
I don't know, guys is turning it into chicks lately.
Who you calling, yo?
You remember back in the days, Rodney, we used to go to the club, and you would see a dude, and a dude was looking sharp. He had a nice suit on. Right. A brother like me and you, like brothers, would never hesitate to go, yo, son, that suit is nice.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Now you got dudes going, yo, man, fuck that dude, man. Like, that's what chicks used to do.
Right.
Yo, we used to go in the club, right?
Unbelievable.
Dudes with ice grills.
Yeah, I believe it, yo. I believe it.
Yeah, like, come on, man. How can you be a man and sit there and say, yo, that dude think he all that?
Yeah, come on. Like, yo, you know what? The age of bitch-assness is upon us.
I'm telling you.
Has been upon us.
We out in the crew, right? And there's a girl that's hot, and we all checking her out.
Right.
But for some reason, she got her eye on Rodney. You know what I'm going to tell Rodney? Yo, knock that shit out the park.
Exactly.
Me, son.
You're not going to, exactly. There's not going to be any type of hate.
Yeah.
You understand?
Knock it out the park for me.
Word. It's ridiculous. Like I said,
I'd be mad. Only time I'd be mad is if somebody outside the crew get it.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, man, we in the state of bitch assness, man. That's what it is.
We really are.
Been in it for a minute.
The age of Drake.
And can I say something? This is kind of off. Well, yeah, it's kind of off topic, but I gotta say something, man.
What's that?
I am really getting tired of this men's right movement.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I am so goddamn tired of these dudes. I mean, it's getting to the point where every time a woman raises her head, it doesn't even have to be a woman that's disrespectful. She could just be a woman. And these dudes come out of the woodworks on some bullshit because they got some hate toward women. I don't hate women. Let me say this for the record. Mr. Holism does not hate women. I don't hate sisters.
Right.
I don't want to be around a bunch of sausage. If I go on a retreat and there's men or all men's this, there better be some poles there. There better be some stripper poles or something going on. I don't want to be around no dudes.
Right. I feel you, brother.
Come on, man. I call women on their BS all the time, but that don't mean I hate them.
Exactly.
These dudes is
just critical.
It's like every time it's like a woman, and then they go to war and attacking them and everything. I'm like, come on, man, calm the hell down and get some pussy. Get some ass. That'll calm shit right down. I'm telling you, it works. It works for me. Whenever I'm stressed out, that works wonders.
Not with these dudes.
Yeah, because they're not getting any.
They got a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, they're not getting any. But it's tiring. It's sickening, man. It's like, come on. You got to have some balance in your life. Like we know how women are. And women know how we are. It ain't like we know big breeze through the park. Like we some perfect human beings, but that's the dynamic between, the male and the female relationship. That's how it is. There's going to be stuff about them we don't understand. There's damn sure stuff about us that they don't understand. But damn, what's the alternative, niggas?
Right.
Dudes, I'm sorry. I'll deal with all the crap that comes with womanhood.
Exactly, yo. Indeed.
I just wanted to get that off my chest because I've been seeing it a lot, man. Just
of course.
Come on.
Of course,
calm
man.
down.
Unfucking real, man.
And you know what? And they keep talking about how. Do you remember like one of the things they said about the feminist movement? How the feminist movement was actually lesbians who hated men. Well, let's flip that around to the men's movement. How come nobody does that?
Right.
Well, you got dudes that want to be surrounded by dudes, and it's all about the dudes and all about the men. And screw women, man. Who do you think that's run by?
Oh my goodness.
But nobody
brother.
ever makes that point.
Yep. Nobody.
Balance. That's what I'm about. Actually, that's what my name means is balance.
Balance.
Holism is balance.
And there it is, folks.
You're stupid.
Yep.
These dudes is on some Drake stuff. They real.
Now, you know what it is, Mark?
We in the age of Ralph Tresvant.
Yeah. You know what it is, though? Like, I keep telling dudes all the time, man. Everybody wants to, like, what it is, like, some guys will say, well, you just got to be yourself. And I agree with that. But don't be yourself as a strategy to get women.
Right.
Be yourself just because that's what you need to do.
That's what
you need.
Right.
Don't do anything to strategize to get women. I don't believe in that whole this is what you do, and if you really want, like these strategies and techniques that you think what works. You know what you got to do. Whenever you are into you, that's when women will be into you. When you are into you and you're not into them.
Yep.
That's when you attract the most amount of women. So let that just be incidental. You know what I'm saying? You do you, and you be concerned about your own needs and whatever, and hopefully you'll meet somebody that's a partner for you, somebody that you can, build with.
Right.
Because that's all you can hope for. It's not about perfection. It's about somebody who is just as screwed up as you are, and y'all hooking up and making something happen. But it's not this rosy perfection where everything is great and, you know.
Right.
That's not realistic. Because it's just about, you know, being yourself and stop being fake and stop trying to appease women and trying to, you know, make them. Because I'll tell a woman in a minute to kiss my ass.
I know you would, brother.
One of the things that really annoys me is when women think that you lie to them. And I always tell a woman when a woman thinks that I'm lying, who the hell are you that I gotta lie to you?
Right.
What you Brock Lesnar or something? You gonna beat me up?
Right.
Like, that's insulting to me. It's like, what? I'm scared of you?
Right.
'Cause that's the only reason to be lying.
Oh, man. Indeed, brother. Indeed.
Activist guy, take your macho insecurity